The tragic events that unfolded on Nazino Island in 1933 stand as one of the most chilling chapters in the history of the Soviet Union. As the early 1930s marked a period of profound political and societal upheaval under Stalin's rule, the Nazino Island gulag serves as a harrowing testament to the extremes of human suffering and the dark underbelly of authoritarian regimes. At the core of this tragedy was the Soviet Union's aggressive push toward rapid industrialization and agricultural collectivization. In this landscape, Genrikh Yagoda, the head of the Okpu secret police, and Matvey Berman, the overseer of the Gulag system, concocted a plan to forcibly relocate millions of citizens to remote areas such as Siberia and the Kazakh regions. This move was an effort to accelerate the transformation of agrarian society into an industrialized powerhouse. The concept of forced relocation itself wasn't new. The Soviet authorities had employed a similar strategy with the kulaks, achieving some degree of success. However, the execution of this plan on Nazino Island would reveal a stark contrast between theory and practice, exposing the brutal incompetence of the system. One critical factor contributing to this catastrophe was the severe shortage of tools required to cultivate the land and establish a functional settlement. The implementation of the deportation plan began with the establishment of transportation hubs in key cities like Tomsk, Omsk, and Akinsk. Railkomsk and Akinsk. Rail convoys were organized to transport the designated deportees, each of whom received a daily ration of a mere 300 grams of bread. Within the overcrowded and chaotic carriages, a power dynamic swiftly emerged, where some individuals managed to hoard their rations while others went without, foreshadowing the grim path that awaited them. The final destination of this tragic journey was Nazino Island, situated in the heart of the Ob River in western Siberia. On May 18, 1933, a group of 322 women and 4,522 women and 4,556 men disembarked onto this remote island, marked by its 3-kilometer length and 600-meter width. Overcrowding was immediate, and the prisoners were provided with only 20 tons of flour as their means of subsistence. The chaos that erupted during the distribution of flour set the tone for the ensuing violence and desperation. The circumstances on the island quickly spiraled into a horrifying abyss. The lack of proper tools, combined with the inability to till the land, propelled the prisoners into a state of profound despair. Within this vacuum, gangs began to form, preying on weaker members and exploiting any available resources for sustenance. These gangs wielded their power through violence and murder, establishing a reign of terror as they fought for survival. As conditions worsened and resources dwindled, the unthinkable act of cannibalism emerged as a desperate means of survival. Reports of the nightmarish conditions on Nazino Island eventually reached the authorities, yet their response was a disturbing mixture of negligence and incompetence. Instead of providing assistance, the decision was made to send an additional 1,000 prisoners to the island, further compounding the overcrowding and scarcity of resources. The guards stationed on the island exhibited a cruelty and sadism that was beyond comprehension, reveling in the spectacle of throwing bread to the prisoners and watching as conflicts erupted among them. Vasily Velichko, a communist instructor in close proximity to the island, felt compelled to investigate the situation firsthand. His arrival on the island in August revealed a scene of unspeakable horror. Half-eaten bodies, concealed amidst tall grasses, painted a gruesome tableau of the horrors that had unfolded. Velichko's interviews with the local Ostyak people further illuminated the magnitude of the tragedy. His report, sent to Moscow, tragically yielded no substantial response or intervention. In the aftermath of this catastrophe, approximately 6,000 individuals were deported to Nazino Island within the span of 13 weeks. An estimated 1,500 to 2,000 lives were lost to starvation, disease, exposure, violence, or accidental death. Even those who survived the closure of the camp were left in a state of profound suffering, facing further hardships upon their relocation to other camps. The tragic events of Nazino Island remained shrouded in silence for decades, until the policy of Glasnost in 1988 permitted greater transparency about the Soviet Union's history. Today, Nazino Island stands as a haunting memorial to the victims who endured unimaginable suffering and death. An annual pilgrimage serves as a solemn tribute to their memory, while a church erected on the island stands as a somber testament to the horrors that transpired there. The Nazino Island Gulag encapsulates the depths of human misery that can be inflicted by unchecked authoritarianism, misguided policies, and the erosion of moral values. It serves as a stark reminder that beneath the veneer of grand ideological visions, the consequences of such actions can result in an unimaginable loss of humanity. The concept of a utopian society, driven by the ideals of communism, was an enduring theme in the early decades of the Soviet Union. However, beneath this ideological facade lay a reality that was far more grim and terrifying. The case of Nazinsky Island is emblematic of the harsh truth behind the regime's aspirations. It exposes the utter disregard for human life, the suppression of individual freedoms, and the tragic consequences of unchecked power. As the Soviet authorities sought to reshape their society, the policy of collectivization emerged as a cornerstone. This policy aimed to consolidate individual farms into collective units, ostensibly to enhance agricultural productivity. However, the implementation of collectivization was marred by violence, coercion, and the disruption of established social structures. Those who resisted collectivization were branded as enemies of the state and subjected to persecution, arrest, and execution. The deportation of kulaks, a term used broadly to label the more prosperous peasants, was a manifestation of this brutal strategy. The deportation to Nazinsky Island was part of a larger pattern of forced labor and exile that plagued the Soviet Union during this era. The gulag system, a network of labor camps, became a tool of political repression and economic exploitation. Prisoners, often convicted on flimsy charges or without due process, were subjected to grueling labor in harsh conditions. The aim was to extract labor for the state's projects, further contributing to the regime's vision of industrialization. Nazinsky Island, however, marked a particularly tragic chapter in the Gulag's history. The remote location, lack of infrastructure, and scarcity of resources turned the island into a death trap. The prisoners, stripped of their dignity and basic human rights, faced an impossible situation. The shortage of food, inadequate shelter, and absence of medical care pushed them to the brink of survival. Desperation drove some to cannibalism, a haunting testament to the extremities to which humans can be driven under such circumstances. The guards, meant to enforce order, became participants in the cycle of violence. They wielded their power with cruelty, adding to the suffering of the already vulnerable prisoners. The island's isolation allowed for such abuses to continue unchecked, as the world remained unaware of the horrors unfolding within its borders. The legacy of Nazinsky Island serves as a grim reminder of the potential for cruelty and inhumanity within any system that places unchecked power in the hands of a few. It stands as a stark example of the consequences of ideological extremism, where the pursuit of an idealized vision can lead to unimaginable suffering. The story of Nazinsky Island is a testament to the importance of recognizing the value of human rights, individual dignity, and the accountability of those in positions of authority. The tragedy of Nazinsky Island underscores the complexity of historical narratives and the imperative of acknowledging the full spectrum of human experiences. While the Soviet Union's official rhetoric may have painted a picture of progress and unity, the reality for those trapped in the gulag system was vastly different. It was a reality marked by suffering, fear, and a desperate struggle for survival. As the 20th century progressed, and the horrors of Nazinsky Island and the broader gulag system came to light, the world began to reckon with the legacy of authoritarian regimes and the profound human cost they exacted. The revelations of the extent of suffering endured by countless individuals within the Gulag's confines shocked the global community and raised difficult questions about accountability, justice, and historical memory. The tragedy of Nazinsky Island also serves as a somber reminder of the importance of preserving historical records and amplifying marginalized voices. For decades, the stories of the victims remained hidden, suppressed by the authorities, and overshadowed by official narratives. The survivors' experiences, as well as the stories of those who perished, were relegated to the shadows of history. It was only through the later policy of glasnost that the truth began to emerge, providing a platform for acknowledging the atrocities committed and honoring the memories of those who suffered. Today, the legacy of Nazinsky Island lives on as a cautionary tale about the potential consequences of unchecked power, the dangers of ideological extremism, and the need to prioritize human rights in any society. The memorialization efforts, such as the wooden cross and the church on the island, stand as poignant reminders of the lives lost and the suffering endured. They also serve as spaces for reflection and remembrance, where individuals can come together to honor the victims and ensure that their stories are never forgotten. In a broader sense, the story of Nazinsky Island compels us to confront the complexities of history and the multifaceted nature of human behavior. It challenges us to resist oversimplified narratives and to grapple with the inherent contradictions that often define historical events. By acknowledging the nuances and recognizing the voices of those who suffered, we contribute to a more accurate and empathetic understanding of the past. In conclusion, the Nazino Island tragedy serves as a harrowing testament to the depths of human suffering that can result from unchecked power, misguided policies, and the erosion of moral values. Set against the backdrop of the Soviet Union's push for rapid industrialization and collectivization, the events on Nazino Island underscore the grim realities that often lay hidden beneath ideological grandeur. The suffering endured by the prisoners, the desperation that led to cannibalism, and the indifference of the authorities all paint a bleak portrait of the human experience under the Soviet regime. The legacy of Nazino Island is a call to remember and honor the victims, to recognize the value of human dignity, and to be vigilant against the potential for cruelty within any system. It stands as a stark reminder that history is a tapestry woven with both heroism and horror, and our responsibility is to acknowledge and learn from all aspects of that tapestry. The tragedy of Nazino Island demands that we confront the complexities of the past and work towards a future where such atrocities are never repeated.